The soft, salty breeze from the Indian Ocean wrapped around us as we ventured through the streets of Ukunda in Kwale County. The warm, humid air, a welcome change from the crisp, cool embrace of Nairobi's highlands. The rhythmic hum of the waves in the distance seemed to echo the relaxed pace of life here, offering a stark contrast to the bustling energy we had left behind in the city. At Palm Beach Hospital, we were introduced to 38-year-old Lydia Sasanu, a resilient mother of a 2-year-old. Despite battling stage 3 breast cancer, she had come in for her routine wound dressing with quiet strength in her eyes. We were instructed to mask up due to her low immunity before we joined her in the nurses' station. The nurses moved with precision and care, taking their time as they tended to her, while Lydia lay on her back, her left breast marked by a tumor that was now breaking through the skin, causing her excruciating pain. To make matters worse, she faces the added financial strain of paying for the dressing out of pocket, as she explains that SHA does not cover this particular cost.
I'm a first-time mom. One time when he was breastfeeding, one side, he would breastfeed one side of the breast, alafu ukuana, anacheza na ingine. And then when I turn him again, he does the same thing. So this time when we were in Taita for December holidays, this was in 2022, he was dwelling more on this side, kucheza na hii side. When I flip him, inakuwa ni shida. He kind of like fidgets. So akanabaki anasakol this side, ananyonya huku, akicheza na huku. And I realized one time in the shower that I was actually growing something. So my son is the one who discovered. And this thing, I started monitoring it. I didn't tell anybody. When I looked at the environment, it was Ushago setting. My grandparents are advanced. It hit me. It hit me slightly. This could be what they talk about. This could be the lamp.
Tonight, Lydia is scheduled to travel to Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital in Nairobi County for her scheduled doctor's review. And we've decided to accompany her, hoping to gain a first-hand understanding of the challenges she faces in seeking treatment.
So we finished the Christmas festivities, New Year. Now I'm coming back with my son. The first stop I went was to Mvindeni dispensary, where I normally take my son for his clinics. And I mentioned to the pediatrician and the nurse that was seated there, and I said, I feel like I have something here. And they said, no. Why would you think of something like that when you're in fact, are you a first mom? When are you first timer? Wacha kufikiria mambo kama hayo.
After taking her baby home, Lydia initially hoped the lump would go away. But as months passed, it only grew larger, prompting her to seek a second opinion at a different health facility in search of answers.
By April, this time I could hold it. I got this doctor at the outpatient, Dr. Ngumi. God bless your soul, Dr. Ngumi. And I presented to him my issue. It was about 5 in the evening. And indeed, he suggested I go for an ultrasound. So I took it back, and he says, you know, you have been proposed to do what is called an FNA, fine needle aspiration. At this point, I'm not using NHIF for any of these. I'm still using cash, and I'm panicking like crazy, and I still have a toddler. And he tells me this fine needle aspiration can only be sought in private entities as far as Coast region is concerned, especially Kwale. I was lucky enough to get the service at a missionary hospital. I felt they charged better. They charged 6,000.
According to Cleveland Medicine, fine needle aspiration, FNA, uses a needle and syringe to get a tissue or fluid sample from a suspicious mass in a patient's body. Healthcare providers use it to help diagnose abnormal tissues in several areas of one's body, such as breasts, thyroid, and lymph nodes.
Once they pulled the fluid, I have never felt so much comfort. The lump just shrunk, and I was back to normal. So I never quite remembered there was actually fluid that was pulled out and taken for testing. But maybe it's because of the reassurance of the lab technician who was there. I believe Kelvin, his name. And he went like, Madam, when they are filled with fluid, it's probably nothing.
When she returned for her results, Lydia was told she needed to undergo a lumpectomy. But with limited funds for private treatment, she chose to seek care at government facilities. That is when the long-awaited period and misdiagnosis began to eat away at the precious time she had delaying the treatment she so desperately needed. We had agreed to meet around 7 p.m, giving us ample time to park as we were crossing 2 counties to reach the standard gauge railway Mombasa terminus. When we arrived at Lydia's house at the agreed time, the uncertainty of the journey became painfully clear. Lydia was in the midst of a severe pain attack, leaving her struggling to manage her discomfort. 2 hours later, after taking some morphine, Lydia regained enough strength, her determination unwavering to make it to her appointment in Nairobi. Holding her son's hand as she made her way out of her home, stride by stride, unaware of the long journey ahead, he clung to her, reluctant to let her go. These are the moments, Lydia says, that break her heart. The quiet goodbyes she has to say to him, not knowing of what the future holds. Since she missed her primary means of transport to the standard gauge railway, we had to take her with us, cruising down the Dongo Kundu bypass road, pushing through the night to make it just in the nick of time for our 10 p.m. train.
Actually, I was the last person to board, so the journey started off immediately, and I was still there for about 30 minutes before now I could get up and go to my designated sitting area. Of course, I hadn't eaten anything. The hostess was coming in, serving food, nikamuita, nikachukua chai, and we proceeded. Now the problem is at the SGR again. I am in the space again. I wasn't getting what could fit my diet as a cancer patient. So what I opted for was muffins. Na muffin na cake ikona skari. So I opted for muffins. Maybe I thought in my head, hiyo unga itanisaidia nguvu, maybe.
And that is when all hell broke loose. Just as we were seated with Lydia on the train, she suddenly began to experience a crippling pain attack, leaving us all helpless as we watched her struggle. Despite it being well past midnight, none of us could catch a moment of rest as we stayed vigil over Lydia, feeling powerless and unsure of what to do next. All we could do was ask the train hostess if Lydia could have a full couch to herself, hoping it would bring her some relief. By this point, other passengers began to notice. Their curiosity piqued as they saw Lydia writhing in pain. Desperate for some relief, she sank into a prostration position, explaining that it was the only stance that offered her even a brief moment of comfort amidst the agony.
The part of my body that is affected by cancer is the breast. So I normally feel like the breast is hanging when I take that position. And when I feel like the breast is hanging, I feel like it has detached from the body. And now when it's hanging, I don't feel like the pain is kind of maybe stops radiating.
My colleague quickly stepped in to help, applying a topical painkiller to Lydia's fingers as she struggled to move her hands due to the excruciating pain. She said she felt as though her body was burning.
Do you imagine pain? You can't talk, you can't move, umekwama, huwezi fanya anything. Imagine such pain. This is what cancer is all about. Pain, 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 pain.
With tears in her eyes, she reminded us that when all else fails, prayers must go up. So when the morphine and painkillers could not ease her suffering, we bowed our heads and asked God to take charge, pleading for His intervention. Nairobi, the city that never sleeps. We arrived in Nairobi at 3:50 a.m. and we were the last passengers to disembark, watching as a frail Lydia slowly made her way to the exit. Each step a painful reminder of the journey she has just endured.
Normally I take a matatu to Ruiru that goes through bypass. Alafu itanibwaga kwa roundabout fulani. Unajua I'm not very conversant with Nairobi, especially hizo environs. So huwa inanibwaga roundabout fulani. And then I take a tuk-tuk now on my way to KU. I do this for convenience. I don't have the luxury of just spending this is money that I've collected through friends.
By 4:30 a.m., we were back on the road heading towards Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. Sleep deprived and exhausted, our sole focus was getting Lydia there early, knowing that many cancer patients travel from far and wide, as she wanted to secure her spot before the long queues began. Once we reached the Kahawa West junction of the bypass, I climbed into a tuk-tuk with Lydia, allowing me to experience her journey firsthand to the hospital. The cold morning breeze hit me like a reality check, a stark reminder of the daily struggle Lydia faces alone as she makes this grueling trek in search of care. And once we paid for the tuk-tuk, we got into the facility.
I'm always spirit yangu to calm down. Now there's no more traveling. Now the next service is from the doctor and from the hospital.
By the time we arrived, the other patients had already started streaming in, each one anxiously awaiting their turn for an appointment. Lydia, though fatigued, expressed a sense of relief as she looked forward to today's consultation.
They told me to wait until the tumor board sits. Tena kufika KU napata madaktari wame-strike. Thankfully, friends came through. Those who are in Nairobi, are based in Nairobi, they came through. And we managed to raise 27,000 that I managed to do a CT scan. But I had to wait for the report. I had to wait for 4 days. My son was still here in Ukunda. I waited 4 days. The results were out. And I presented them to the doctor. And the doctor says, you know what, this chemotherapy has not been working, the disease has progressed. It has progressed by this margin, 43%. I left devastated, I was crying. Now people had suggested KU pia sasa imeleta shida. Yani nilitoka pale confused. And I asked now mimi nitabaki aje? Nasema for now we have to delay treatment until we know exactly what we are dealing with. Hatuwezi kukupatia dawa ambayo inazidi kukudhuru. Kwa hiyo mimi nikawa pulled out. I was pulled out. It's now almost 6 weeks. I'm not on any medication in terms of cancer treatment. Any conventional medication in terms of cancer treatment. So what I've opted, I've gone herbal.
6 or 7 times a week. So I'm going to stretch. Nanilale. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to stretch Nanilale.
So the earlier you see the doctor, the better?
The better for me.
But how exactly did Lydia end up here? It all started with a simple misdiagnosis, a delay that would later spiral into a battle for her life, leading her to this moment of uncertainty and unrelenting pain.
So I get a booking, I go for my surgery in September, and my surgery didn't even last 6 minutes. I went to the theater and I was pulled out. What really happened? While I was in the theater, a doctor noticed that this part of me had started to swell. They call it the lymph nodes. So wakazungumza na yule daktari. Baada ya kama dakika 5, walikuwa na kama kongamano. Sasa mimi nimebaki pale kwa stretcher nimelala. So hiyo kongamano walikuwa wamenisurround namna hii. Kuna mwingine alikuwa ametoa ultrasound, kitu kama inakaa kama ultrasound. Aliconnect na simu, akaanza kukagua hapo mahali. Kuna mwingine alikuwa ameanza kupiga masimu pale ndani. Kuna wengine sasa wakaanza kufinya yale. Na ukumbuke I was still breastfeeding. Sasa hili titi lingine pia lilikuwa limevimba. Sasa wakaanza pia wote kukagua. I thank God for that teamwork. Yes, they concluded that they could not have my surgery then. At that point, I was sure this was going to end up being a cancer diagnosis. The doctor followed me to the ward and apologized and said, Lydia, we missed a few things. Please, would you kindly accept to go through another ultrasound guided biopsy?
In our population, that is to say in the probably the East or Eastern African population, we know that we have more patients who are younger with breast cancer, and also what we have seen is that it tends to be a bit more aggressive when it presents in the younger patients. So genetics actually plays a bigger role when you have younger patients presenting with breast cancer.
That was when Lydia opened a WhatsApp group and set up an M-Pesa pay bill number to help raise funds for her treatment. With the support of her family and the generosity of those around her, she was eventually able to seek care at a private facility.
2023 of November. This is now when we are getting a diagnosis, a proper diagnosis. Remember, the lump was established by my son in December 2022. By March 2023, I was already up and down Msambweni referral and Kinondo. It is in November that I got a proper cancerous diagnosis. All those months rendered me stage 3. And that hurt to the bones. When the doctor told me, you're now stage 3. Is there an option for surgery? Yes. However, for you, the ideal is to go through chemotherapy first. And every time I think about that, it makes me emotional, because the times when there are people who came up to me and said, Lydia, umesoma. Ilikuwaje ukangoja hii kitu ikafika paka hapa? But the truth is, I did go early. Nilienda immediately nilipopata hiyo lump. But all those months kuambiwa enda rudi. Nenda urudi every 2 weeks. Nenda ufanye hii scan, nenda ufanye hii biopsy, nenda ufanye hii. Kitambo nitafute hiyo pesa, because none of that was being acknowledged by NHIF. NHIF only takes you once you have gotten those cancerous results. That is when inakubeba. Sasa kitambo nitafute hiyo pesa nini? Yeah? Akaniambia niko stage 3. The only thing I thought was, wait, stage 3. Stage 3 unajua iko karibu na stage 4. Being told I was stage 3 was the worst statement in this cancerous journey. I was okay being told I have breast cancer, but I was not okay being told I was stage 3. So surgery was scraped out, and I was asked to begin chemotherapy. At this juncture, I was so desperate. The lump was now becoming painful because ilikuwa inalalia huku kabisa. It has become so painful, I couldn't even scratch anymore. And therefore, I subjected na nikakubali kwenda chemotherapy.
Lydia began her 12 chemotherapy sessions broken down into 4 cycles. She shared with us that the Social Health Authority only covered the cost of chemotherapy, around 30,000 Kenya shillings per session, leaving other expenses like dressing and medication to be paid out of pocket. Despite the financial strain, Lydia remained determined, ready for her surgery ahead.
I thank God for the chemo, manake kule kujikuna kuliacha. Ile maji ilikuwa ni maji, at some point I used to feel like I'm smelling. Kulipungua. Sasa nilipoambiwa sasa ni surgery. This is what I was looking up to, by the way, all this time. So in March I was proposed to go for surgery, March the 15th, but March the 10th. It happened on 11th. Unfortunately, this exact time the doctors had gone for strike. I could not book my surgery in any public hospital. That meant going back to the pocket. Kutafuta. Uzuri nilikuwa na WhatsApp group, nikawaandikia, nikawaambia kwamba mimi nahitaji kwenda surgery na hela sina. And they picked up from there, and I went on and enrolled for surgery. And the surgery was successful. The doctor gave me the option of mastectomy and partial mastectomy. And he explained every other detail. And he told me which candidate I was good for. But the only thing, because I was new in this journey, I just told the doctor, whatever you feel is good for me, nipatie.
Her surgery was deemed successful and she was declared cancer-free. But just 2 months later, things took a sudden and unexpected turn.
Oncologist akaniambia sasa the next option ni kwamba watakana urudi chemotherapy. Why would I go back for chemotherapy? Why? And he says there are times when you go for surgery and these cancer cells escape. How many sessions? 4. 4. I've done 12. 4 is not an issue. I went back. So after I did my 3 sessions now, after surgery, unfortunately, the breast started showing more signs. It became really firm. I was having pain. I couldn't sleep on this side. I couldn't sleep on my on face. Hivi chini ni kulala hivi. Everything was coming back the way it had started.
Her doctor informed her that she needed to undergo an urgent PET scan, and to her dismay, her chemotherapy treatment was abruptly halted in the meantime, leaving her feeling uncertain and anxious about what lay ahead.
This is June of 2024. I got the surgery in March. I did my 3 weeks, I did my sessions, the 3 sessions between March and May. Late June is when now I came back with the results. So when I came back, the oncologist said there's no point of us doing the 4th session. And I asked how is it that I got a recurrence, because as far as I'm concerned, I've been on medication throughout. I've been coming for reviews. I have done nothing extraordinary from what the doctors have told me, including you. I've been in your office for a long time. So what has really happened here? Akaniambia kwamba yale madawa ambayo alikuwa ananipatia ya chemo hayakuwa yanafanya kazi. When I left that office, human nature, I lost trust. Mbona akinipatia wengine na isifanye?
Lydia was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer. According to a study by Cleveland Medicine, triple-negative breast cancer is different from other types of breast cancer because it does not contain any of the receptors that are usually found in breast cancer. In triple-negative breast cancer, the 3 most common receptors known to fuel breast cancer growth, estrogen, progesterone, and hormone epidermal growth factor receptor 2, are not present in the cancerous tumor. Common breast cancer treatments like hormonal therapy and drugs that target estrogen, progesterone, and HER2 are ineffective. However, other treatments such as chemotherapy can be effective in treating triple-negative breast cancer. Triple-negative breast cancer spreads faster than other types of breast cancer. According to a study by Cleveland Medicine analyzing how much breast cancer tumors grew between the time of diagnosis and surgery, found that triple-negative breast cancer tumors grew by 1% each day, in comparison to hormonal epidermal growth factor receptor 2 cancer tumors, which grew by 0.859% each day. After seeing the doctor on Thursday, Lydia was asked to return on Monday morning to meet with a surgeon for further diagnosis, leaving her with a sense of lingering uncertainty over the weekend. A bright-eyed Lydia sat patiently waiting for her turn as we accompanied her to our appointment, her spirits lifted and her energy noticeably lighter than usual. Today, she was in high spirits, hopeful for the answers she has been anticipating. She went in for a private consultation, and as she emerged, Lydia shared that her questions had finally been answered, bringing her to a sense of clarity and relief she had been desperately seeking.
When we do treatment for breast cancer, from the word go, once the diagnosis is made and then further investigations are done, normally we will have what we call a multidisciplinary team meeting. And in the multidisciplinary team meeting, we make a decision on the best pathway for treatment for this patient. And the initial bit of the treatment is this treatment with a curative intent or is it a palliative intent? If it's a treatment with a curative intent, then you have a pathway. So for most patients, that is what will happen. And unfortunately, some cancers will come back, even in the setting of having given the best of care. Once the cancer comes back, then again you regroup and rediscuss this patient, and then again you have a new plan, and then again at the time of recurrence, is it, once you investigate, is it treatment with a curative intent or treatment with a palliative intent?
This meant we had to head back straight to Kwale County with her from the hospital. A long journey ahead, but one now that felt a little lighter with answers she had been waiting for. At the SGR Nairobi terminus, we arrived just in time, and as we waited for boarding, Lydia managed to eat a little food and have some tea, hoping it would help warm her up and give her the strength she needed for the journey ahead. This time, there were no pain attacks before the journey. But as soon as we boarded the train and began our trip back to Mombasa County and to Kwale, Lydia was hit with another painful episode, and we had to take turns caring for her, doing our best to comfort her through the agony. Upon arrival at the Mombasa SGR terminus, Lydia was wheeled out of the station, too weak to walk on her own. This was just a small glimpse of the grueling reality she faces every week when she has to travel to Nairobi County for treatment, a relentless cycle of physical, emotional, and mental strain. Lydia's heart ached with anticipation, eager to get home, yearning to feel the warmth of her son's embrace, to hold him close as if the world outside could wait just a little longer.
It's very clear. The boy came into my life at this point to give me hope. He smiles, he smiles. He's very innocent. Yeah? He's very innocent. He pulls me out, he wants his walk. He pulls me out, he wants to play. He brings the toys, he wants to kucheza. He wants me to change his cartoon. He doesn't care about umetoka kimu. Huyo si shida yake. And that has kept me going. Aside from that, the love of God. The love of God has been sufficient for me.
The aftermath of her previous chemotherapy sessions has left her fingers shadowed in a dark hue, a stark contrast to their once vibrant state, making the delicate art of nail care an almost impossible task as the toll on her body deepens. The once lush crown of her hair, now slowly regrowing in delicate patches, has given way to the soft embrace of a headscarf, which she now wears with quiet grace, finding comfort in its familiar presence.
This is a matter of drugs being injected into your veins, as you can see. These are after effects. Some of them have been burnt by these drugs, chemotherapy. In fact, as far as we are concerned, hii mkono ni kama hata sina veins sasa. They call them fibrous. I don't use my bare feet anywhere else because chemo messed with my nerves, including my toes, and they give me these spots that itch. So I'm always either in socks or I prefer these, I don't know, they call them Crocs or what. Shoes, I always have to be in shoes. I also don't bath with cold water. I would itch forever. I don't sleep well. My nerves keep pulling.
To ease her burden, Lydia has now received a referral letter from Kenyatta University Teaching Referral and Research Hospital to Coast General Hospital, where she is scheduled to begin radiotherapy, as doctors advised against surgery due to the advanced stage of her tumor and the associated risks.
The prevalence of breast cancer cases has been on the rise, leading doctors and researchers to question other driving factors besides genetics. For Lydia, she clenches on to hope that her next round of treatment will help ease her burden as she awaits a resolve. Helen Aura, NTV.